It's like, I'm trying to look at this a bit objectively, and to be frank, I don't think you need to care about it in order to make a good business out of it, you know?
Interesting take.
Just rob all your customers and then kick them to the curb.
No,
Spit on
basically
them,
what you're
slag
saying.
what I
them.
mean.
No,
It's
hold
like-
on. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Anime Club After Dark, the podcast that delves into all things anime, manga, and otaku culture related. I'm your host, Alex, but you can call me Senpai, and joining me tonight, I have our chivalry of Shota Shotaro.
Always put your best breast forward.
And our poser extraordinaire, Nitai. Nitai's a bit hungover.
I just don't know how to follow that up, you know?
You clearly didn't put your best breast forward.
Obviously, I should work on those breasts.
I'm gonna just leave that where it is and move on. So before we actually get to what we're gonna be talking about tonight, we do have a bit of news which Sho brought to our attention. So I'm gonna turn it over to him to tell us about it.
So Manga Rock has made an announcement. If you don't know who they are an illegal manga aggregator. They have a website and I know they have an iPhone app. I assume they have an Android app as well. And the announcement is that they're planning to shut down their servers. No.
Hey, tell everyone why you're so disappointed about this.
I paid for the premium app. It let me download offline, and I was traveling, so like it was helpful. I caught up on. Well, I didn't catch up, but I read like 100 chapters of Fire Forest. It was totally a waste of my time, but I still.
Muscle Girl was there. It was never a waste of time.
Sure. Anyways, they are shutting down their service because they started the service when the staff was in college, and they allege that they didn't know that the manga scanlations that they were getting online were illegal, which I want to say is bullshit, because like, how can you not know? But then again, when I was in college, I also didn't know what was illegal, so maybe they're right.
I still call bullshit.
Yeah, I still call bullshit.
It does
on that.
sound very bullshit, but anyways, so now they quote unquote realize how much harm they've been doing to the manga industry, so they are planning to shut down. They haven't stated any concrete event, or like, first of all, they didn't release a date when they're going to shut down. Second of all, they didn't say specifically what brought this on. Like, they didn't say if they were served an order of some kind or were received specific complaints. We don't know particularly why this is happening at this exact moment, but Uradori Comics CEO, I don't know what that is, but their CEO
I assume it's a comic distributor.
Well, maybe, but I've never heard of it before. Own Takahashi is their CEO, who criticized Manga Rock publicly on Twitter, and this was recent, and it accumulated 60,000 retweets, so that might be a reason why this is happening, but we're not sure. Either way, I lost my investment in Manga Rock, my like $2.99 girl, down the drain. No. I really don't want to have a public opinion about this.
Sure.
I'm sure you don't. I will say this kind of highlights something that may need to be worked on going forward. And you know, I'm old school. I like to collect, manga in physical form. I know not everyone likes to do that, but there's really not that many great places you can go and get, manga that's, coming out recently that you can get in a reasonable time frame. And that's something that I think that needs to be worked on.
And like, It would be so much more convenient to have a bundled online service for this stuff
Yes.
that Crunchyroll is trying to do, but they really don't have that big of a library. But I think that's like the only really like significantly large library of manga that I know of.
You also have
Um,
like the I can't remember the name of the app, but you do have a manga app for one of the big publishing company. I'll look it up while I'm talking about it. That it is technically free, so there is more push for that. It's called it's called Manga Plus basically. So and it is official. So some companies are like waking up to the fact that hey, maybe we should do that. We have that market of like phone users. We should capitalize on
Yeah.
that.
And especially with the prevalence of mobile devices, where like tablets and such, where you can read on the go. I mean, why not have a service like this? I will say one of the criticisms, or not criticisms, but issues I've heard certain companies give for why they don't invest more in something like this is that they can't find enough people to do constant translations. My fucking reaction to that is hire all these scanlators. They're all out there.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. It's basically also the app is like it features Shonen Jump manga, so it is like Shonen Jump, the biggest magazine.
Yeah. Well, and Shonen Jump also has like an online manga reading service too, I believe, that they do themselves. I don't know. I don't use it, but I've heard that they do. Yeah, I think this kind of highlights a definite need in the industry that isn't necessarily being fulfilled, and it's why you have sites like Mangarock. I guess were, I guess still technically is, at least at the time of this recording, but it's going to shut down eventually. But that kind of leads me into what we want to talk about tonight. So, as many of you may know, there are way more streaming services out there for anime than there used to be. And we're going to be talking about that tonight. We're going to be talking about how there have, over the last 4 to 5 years, have been a lot of newcomers on the scene trying to get into the anime streaming biz. But I want to start out by talking just very briefly about the history of some of the services we're going to be talking about tonight. I guess I should start with Crunchyroll because they've probably been around the longest, even though as a company, some of these other companies we're going to talk about have been around the longer than Crunchyroll, but they haven't been streaming anime as long. And I want to specifically point to Crunchyroll coming off of the Mangarock thing. And Crunchyroll doesn't like to talk about this, but they started out as a pirated anime streaming service.
That's right.
Back in 2006. And they don't like to talk about it at all, but it's absolutely true. For like the first year and a half to 2 years of them operating, they pretty much exclusively did pirated anime and J-dramas. And they have come a long way since then. They're probably one of the most recognized names in anime streaming, I would say. I think it's fair to say, don't you guys think?
Yeah, I think they like put it on the map, the whole idea of we should stream it like almost immediately after the original broadcast in Japan.
Yeah, within an hour to 2 hours now is when you get it after it premieres in Japan. And of course, on the backs of that, Funimation, which is a company that had been around for a lot longer than Crunchyroll, once Crunchyroll started getting recognition and getting bigger, they decided to go in with their own streaming service, which is, I think at beginning was just called the Funimation Web Player, and it's been rebranded to Funimation Now recently. I want to say, as someone who has actually used the service for several years now, it's never been that great.
And yet you still continue to use it.
And yet I still continue to give Funimation my money. I don't know why, but I do. It's Funimation is probably best known for producing a bunch of English dubs, and for a while, since when Crunchyroll started out, they almost exclusively just handled subtitled stuff. That's sort of changing now, but back then they only pretty much did subtitled stuff. Funimation was where you went to stream anime dubs, and that's kind of what they've been known for. It's how their company got started, doing anime dubs, and that's really what their web player, their streaming service, became known for, is the place to go to stream anime dubs. And I personally, I won't disparage anime dubs. I think they definitely have a place within the fandom. I don't think any of us here probably would have gotten into anime had it not been for dubs. So I will never disparage them for that. Although they could definitely do with investing in a better streaming service.
I mean, now that Sony
probably-
owns them, so hopefully.
Yeah, now Sony owns them. Yeah, maybe. That just tells me that the next PlayStation will have Funimation bloatware in it.
Woo.
Yeah, woo. Okay, so the next one I want to talk about is Netflix. Now, Netflix as a company has been around since the late 90s, 1997 to be exact. And they, even though they got into streaming in the mid 2000s, I think around 2006 or 7 is when they started streaming. They didn't immediately have anime on their service, but they did have some anime that they had licensed, but none of it was exclusive to Netflix. It's only been in the last 3 to 4 years where Netflix has actually gone out and spent a bunch of money, or given a bunch of money to a bunch of anime studios and said, hey, would you mind making this and then only putting it on our platform? To which a lot of these studios, having millions of dollars waved in their face, will say, of course.
Because obviously, like, it's
Absolutely.
pretty good money, especially considering how, like, just silly our process was, you know, with what the production committee and all that shit that goes on in Japan. So I don't blame them for taking that deal whenever they do approach
Yeah,
them.
for sure. Especially anything to do away with the committee system, or to at least streamline it.
Yeah.
Now, as I said, they did have anime on their service before they really got deep into licensing anime themselves. So I think a lot of people that I've talked to who got into anime, I want to say like between 2007 to 2010, they actually said they got into anime because they just stumbled upon it on Netflix. So I guess good on Netflix for doing that for some people. I think in that sense, they certainly helped grow the fan base,
Yeah.
whether that was the intention or not. So the next one I want to talk about is Amazon Prime. Now, Amazon had a straight up anime-only streaming service that was called Anime Strike. I think they did this for, 2 years?
Something like
This thing
that,
was
yeah.
around? It was around for about 2 years. Yes, okay, so it launched on January 1st, 2017, and ended on January 5th, 2018. So it was just over a year that it was around. So Amazon really wanted to get into this anime streaming service thing, so they had Anime Strike, which was a subscription-based thing that they had called Amazon Channels. So in the order to access Anime Strike, not only did you have to have an Amazon Prime subscription, which is $120 a year, you also had to pay an additional fee on top of that to access Anime Strike. So it was a double paywall. This unsurprisingly garnered a lot of backlash from the anime community. They're like, hey, my family already has Prime. Why can't I just access this with Prime? So once Anime Strike kind of went offline, the stuff that they had already licensed was absorbed into Amazon Prime Video's library. So now you can get the same stuff that was on Anime Strike just with an Amazon Prime subscription. Now, I know people outside the United States, like you, Natai, will look at that and say it's $120 a year to stream anime. I get it. That's a huge hurdle for a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
But for us here in
But Amazon
US
also
and
gives
North
you a
America,
shit ton of perks beside watching
there's
anime.
a shit ton of perks
Yeah.
for people who live in North America if you have Amazon Prime. I know it doesn't offer all that stuff for people outside the United States and North America, but for someone like me, it's a bargain because I get, not only do I get some anime, but I also get free 2 day shipping and access to Amazon Music and all kinds of other
Also,
perks.
just to remind, in case anyone forgot, all of these streaming services, each, like, at least to some extent, have exclusivity rights. So some shows
Yes.
ended up on Anime Strike, and guess what? No one else could watch them because they
Yeah.
just stayed there.
I mean, you could if you were industrious.
You know what I mean.
I know what you mean, yes. And the last one I really want to talk any kind of in-depth about is the relative newcomer to all this, and that's High Dive. So High Dive kind of came out of the closure of Anime Network Online, which was a service where a lot of Sentai Filmworks licensed properties were streamed out of. There was also an actual cable channel called the Anime Network, which also aired a lot of Sentai Filmworks stuff. So High Dive kind of came out of that. And that's pretty much what it's become known for. Is it's the only place you can go and legally stream stuff that gets licensed by Sentai. I will say one thing that High Dive does have going for it over some other streaming services that are out there currently is that it, unlike Crunchyroll, offers a lot of sub and dub options, and it offers both subtitles and dubs in languages other than English.
I think
Primarily that includes currently Spanish and Portuguese, but there are a few series out there that also have, I believe, French dubs on the service.
I think Netflix also offers multiple languages. But I mean,
yes, they do.
My only experience with that is I tried to watch Kakegurui on Netflix in the original Japanese dub, and the lips didn't sync up to the Japanese dub, and I'm like, really, really, this is why I had to wait 3 months for it to come out, and it's still not properly done. This is why I watch sub only. I don't deal with dubbing. You ruined the original content now.
So there's a couple of other ones that I just briefly want to mention. I want to say Hulu, because Hulu, although it doesn't really exclusively license a bunch of anime, it does tend to show on their service a lot of Funimation licensed properties. Now, I will say, not usually will they exclusively grab stuff, unless, of course, you happen to be One Punch Man for some reason. I don't know why they just sniped One Punch Man season 2 out like at the very last minute, but okay, we'll go with it. And I also want to briefly mention Verve, which is another relative newcomer, which isn't exclusively an anime streaming service. It's like a bundle of different streaming services all in one interface. So you have things like currently Crunchyroll, High Dive, Boomerang, Cartoon Hangover, Curiosity Stream, Rooster Teeth. Pretty much anything on Crunchyroll and High Dive's library you can access through Verve. So I guess that's kind of a perk in a way. Especially if you like all these other things that they have bundled into the service. So it's almost like buying a cable subscription.
Which we will get to.
Yes, I know, right? And then lastly, Natai kind of brought this up right before we started, and I think it may be worth mentioning. So Disney is coming out later this year. I think it's actually, is it already launched?
I think it's next month, maybe.
Next month, okay. Yeah, Disney is starting a streaming service of their own called Disney Plus. Obviously, Disney is not an anime production studio, but one thing they do have is the distribution rights to Studio Ghibli films.
Yep.
So I'm kind of wondering if that's where the catalog of Studio Ghibli stuff will end up.
Yeah, now again, Disney do own Hulu, so like they do have that going for them. But again, the whole thing with Ghibli sort of like makes you wonder what's going on with that.
Yeah, and actually, there's a lot of those movies that it's really hard to find them streaming legally anywhere. So if they were compiled all onto one service, I guess that would be a plus.
Yeah, pun intended.
That's funny. Yeah, this is obviously there are other streaming services out there. There's some regional streaming services, but these are the big ones for North America and the West in general. So, as you can probably imagine, that's a lot of services, and a lot of these services have just started to ramp up in the last 5 years or so, whereas before you pretty much had Crunchyroll and Funimation, and that was your two go-tos. And then of course you had Netflix, which had just random anime that were not exclusive to them at all on their service.
And you even had that and you even, sorry to cut you off, but you even had that partnership between Crunchyroll and Funimation that gave you an even better deal. So it seemed like it was sort of going in a different direction, but then that's played off pretty quickly, to be honest. So
That's true. So the big question tonight, 20 minutes into this, is: are there too many subscription services available for anime content out there?
Yes. Bye.
Simple answer. Yes. Bye. Thank you all out there for dropping.
Easy.
I mean, I can certainly remember a time when you literally your two options were Crunchyroll and Funimation, and that was if you wanted to stream anime legally, that was what you went to. And now it's like you have so many options, and for some people, especially young people trying to get into anime, it severely limits them because all of these services, they do all have paid subscription services, but some of them do have a way to access the stuff for free, i.e. Crunchyroll and Funimation with ads. But to get all of these would require an enormous monthly cost.
And just
So
a
I think
hassle,
it's
to be honest. Yeah.
It is. It's disparaging for people who are trying to get into anime, especially if you want to watch stuff legally. And I hate to say this because as someone who truly believes in the idea of capitalism, this actually might be a way in which capitalism could be failing a market like this. Of course, you're also seeing something like this with regular streaming services too. There's a huge growth of streaming services out there for other kinds of content too. You have like Netflix, Hulu, you have Amazon Video, you have HBO Go, you have pretty much every network television station in the US forming their own streaming service. And it's becoming a huge burden on people who want to actually access this content, but then they have to shell out enormous money just to get it.
Yeah, and it's been ramping up especially in the last few years. And
and the reason I bring in the idea about capitalism is there's this ingrained tenet in capitalism that all competition is good. I think that competition is good to a point, especially competition that forces the companies in competition with each other to make themselves as best as they can. But there comes a point when there's so much competition that no one's going to innovate anyway. Because they'll just go out and buy up all these licenses, and it's like, well, what I have that no one else has is this show. And that's how they try and sell people on it.
That's what you call a monopoly, where you don't have to innovate because you own the thing and no one else can sell it except you. So there's no
That's true.
incentive to get better.
That's true.
And it's a shame because let's be honest, because Netflix, say what you will about them, before Netflix, no one else was streaming Evangelion. So
true.
There are some benefits to having more people in the race, but yeah, it's been pretty ridiculous how each news service okay, we own this show and no one else is getting it. It's okay, so we're taking this show, and it's well, I guess my wallet is fucked,
Yeah, there's also been some question. I think it deserves maybe us looking at a little bit of do these companies that are getting into this anime streaming business, do they even care about anime and anime fans? Because I've heard one of the biggest complaints about Netflix getting into anime is their release model. Netflix tends to, more often than not, release stuff once it's finished. So a lot of stuff that Netflix has is what they call Netflix originals, which is something else that pisses people off when they call anime on Netflix originals, because there's no Netflix studio making this anime. But one of the big pet peeves is that when Netflix picks up a show, you won't actually get to see it until the season after it airs, at least, maybe even further along than that. And most anime fans don't want that. They either want you to release it week to week or release it all at the beginning of the season. They don't want to wait until after the season's over when no one's talking about it to finally be able to watch it.
I assume Netflix does this because people who haven't heard about the show before and then find out it exists through Netflix are more likely to actually finish watching the show if it's all there at once. So they're catering to the I guess
Binge
the
market.
casuals.
Yeah, they're definitely catering to casual anime fans more so than the hardcore anime
Yeah.
fans. I'd definitely give you that.
Yeah, but by catering to the casuals, they're basically fucking over the people who actually are trying to follow the show and who actually are looking
But-
forward to it.
Again, Netflix sort of like built its way like to the mainstream with like the binge, what like with binging shows. That's always been like what they've done. So seeing that they're applying it to anime, it kind of makes sense because it's always what they've done. But obviously, yeah, it's kind of them mistreating like the hardcore market that is consuming anime.
The problem is that they're actually not fully applying it to anime. If they wanted to fully apply it to anime, they would have bought all of the streaming rights, including the streaming rights in Japan, and released it globally all at once. But they half-assed it, and they're like, you can release it in Japan at whatever pace you want, but we gonna release it at our own pace. So, like, I prefer the Netflix model. Release it all at once whenever you want, honey. But, like, don't have different models where, like, one place is releasing it at this frequency and the other place is releasing it at a different frequency.
Yeah.
That's just stupid. So, Netflix, get your shit together.
A great example of that is the difference between how they released something like Agretzko and how they released something like Carol and Tuesday. So
Yeah,
Agretzko,
very
they
true.
released Agretzko all at once worldwide on the same day. They did not do that with Carol and Tuesday, which is airing week to week in Japan. They waited until the season was so Carol and Tuesday started in spring, right?
Right. They're in
Yeah,
spring.
Carol and Tuesday started in spring. And now we just now, a couple of weeks ago, got the first 12 episodes of this 24-episode show on Netflix. So more than a season and a half after it started. I mean,
Then
that's
it's gonna
not
be a while
applying
till
it-
like the rest of it comes out as well.
the rest of it probably won't be out until the end of December, maybe?
Mm-hmm.
That's ridiculous. I mean, why do it for one when you could do it for every one of them?
And remember,
Like that.
when Violet Evergarden came out, they released it weekly. Not in the US, but in the rest of the world, they did release it weekly. So, like, what
Yeah,
the fuck?
everywhere in the world got it weekly except the U.S. And that makes no sense. I don't know. It's got to be a money thing. It's got to be.
I don't
It's
know.
certainly not a technical thing. So I know for a fact it's not a technical thing because I have a second Netflix account and I use a VPN to watch Japanese Netflix. I am paying for Netflix twice, so I don't feel like I'm stealing anything. But one of the things that I have found out doing this is that Violet Evergarden, I was able to watch it week to week on Netflix because I was using my Japanese Netflix account. And not only was all of Violet Evergarden there in sub format, but I could have watched it dubbed in English on Japanese Netflix week to week.
Nice, very nice.
I don't know what the major malfunction was.
I
Like,
think
it's
it's-
certainly not a technical issue.
I think we're giving it just too much credit. It's literally just them thinking that the West, America, is more about binging shows than watching them weekly. I think it's literally just that.
Do you think it's just that they feel that that's the American like
Yeah,
necessity?
because I don't know if I'm guessing, but I'm guessing that America and US is like their biggest market, right? And I think for the longest time that market is or was, doesn't matter, watching shows in binge format, right? So I'm guessing they're just going on like with those numbers. Again, Netflix has the numbers to show how many of their viewers are actually consuming the content in binge format or weekly format. So they know the numbers. Obviously, we don't. So maybe they're going on with that. I think that's the only reason. I don't think it's more than that.
Maybe. I think also it has something to do with the fact that Netflix, in general, when it started its streaming service, only really streamed movies, which is something you sit down and watch all at once, typically.
Yeah.
Or you either watch a few minutes of it, you figure out this is not for me, I'm going to something else. So I think that's a bit of a holdover from that, too.
Probably.
But it's so silly when there's certainly not a technical issue limiting you from doing this week to week. So why do it? Luckily, there was a article that was released recently where Netflix has stated that they are going to start doing experiments with a week-to-week release model for things that they license, especially things that they license that are currently airing. So I think the first thing that they've done with this, there's I've forgotten the name of it, but there's a British like reality baking competition that airs week to week in the UK, which they have licensed the new season of, and they are airing it week to week worldwide on Netflix in every market. So I'm hoping something like that can come to anime. At the very least, just if you want to keep your binge model, do it, but release it at the beginning of the season.
It doesn't, no, Alex, it doesn't matter when they release it. It's the point is you can't have multiple platforms releasing it on different dates.
I agree. Maybe not necessarily at the beginning of the season, but make it consistent is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Make it consistent across the board. Oh, and yeah, and more so, you can't have it, releasing differently in different markets. That's so silly. But it's my pet peeve with Netflix. Also, I know this show you went on a rant one time about why they're called Netflix originals when they didn't have anything. They're not the studio that made it.
Well, yeah, I've already made that rant on this podcast. I'm not going to do it again, but I don't appreciate their branding.
So, I have a little bit of insight on that for you if you're interested.
Sure.
So Netflix considers anything to be a Netflix original if it produces, co-produces, or directly funds in any way the production of something.
That's bullshit. I pull up the list of anime that are listed as Netflix originals. I know one of those, at least one, Netflix did not fund.
Oh, excuse me. Okay, I found the actual quote. So a quote, Netflix original is content produced, co-produced, funded, and or distributed by Netflix.
Yeah, distributed.
Keyword,
distributed.
Distributed.
I left out the key word that it's distributed.
Good lord.
So if I buy the distribution rights to Bakano and I decide that only I distribute it, I can just slap on the case Nitai original.
Yeah, like no other person was involved except for Nitai. He was the voice actor for all of the characters. He did the animation.
Hey,
and
I can do that if you
he did
want me to.
everything. Yeah.
Natai, I have to say, you did a really good job with all the female voices.
Oh God.
I know. It's a really weird moniker, and it's something that Netflix, I think rightfully so, has been admonished for.
I understand. It's their branding. Like, a Netflix original is supposed to colloquially mean we have it on our platform, but it's a bad branding. It's literally a misleading branding. I swear, like, that is susceptible to a lawsuit. I swear to God.
But yeah, so back to my original question, do you think that some of these companies that have recently tried to get in on the anime streaming wave, do you think they're really just riding the wave of a trend as a cash grab, or do you think that some of these genuinely care about anime and anime fans?
So
I don't think... Go ahead, Nitai.
Okay, so like they want to make money, so they invested in anime. I think it's pretty obvious. B, to some of them, it doesn't matter if they care about anime because, again, it's a business. And C, I don't think most of them, I don't know if need to care, but it's like, just because it's like, I'm trying to look at this a bit objectively, and to be frank, I don't think you need to care about it in order to make a good business out of it,
Interesting take.
Just rob all your customers and then kick them to the curb. Spit on them.
Basically, what you're saying. Hold on. So what you're saying is that more companies should act like Apple and just build all their customers for every single dollar they have.
Fucking $1,000 for a fucking stand for your
monitor
whatever.
Stand. Yeah. That's like saying you want an episode of this anime, give me $1,000. You got that episode.
I
It's
didn't
all
mean it
yours.
to that extent. You know that. What I mean is that I'm like, and again, I would rather like companies actually give a shit about their customers, obviously, but let's not kid ourselves. Like they're big ass companies. I'm not saying it's because I think that's how it should be. But I'm just trying to like, you know, look at it as it is. Probably most of them don't really like give a shit about it. Let's be honest.
I mean, but that's just
mean,
bad
certain-
business practices. Like the more you
Yeah,
care
like
about
I'm
your
not
customers,
I'm not
Huh?
supporting it. I'm just saying it's probably like I don't think they do.
I don't think they do either. I don't think anyone cares about their customers in the Amazon in the anime streaming industry. Not a Freudian slip at all.
Bezos cares about you. What are you talking about?
I think okay, like Crunchyroll. I feel
Jeff Bezos wants to watch you while you sleep. Of course he cares.
Crunchyroll, I feel, cares about their fans at one point in their
Not anymore.
yeah, but not anymore. And I think Crunchyroll cares the most out of all of the streaming services. I think the second most would be Funimation.
Funimation, yeah.
And then the rest are like wah, 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 not really care that much. But I still think that even Crunchyroll doesn't care enough. Like, I don't think they're doing enough to actually serve their customers properly.
I think
Okay,
Netflix has been doing like some good things for like the community. Again, like to some extent, because again, let's be honest, no one was streaming Evangelion online anywhere until now. So like they might be like a bit slow with how they react to some stuff, but it seems like they are taking some steps, you know.
Yeah. I will say one thing that we keep talking about is this idea of exclusivity. And I think that's definitely what we're talking about, because with this increase in streaming services, you get more and more of these companies that are gobbling up this every season. They gobble up. It's like, oh, this is mine. You can have this one. You over there, you can have this one. I'm taking this giant, big name thing that's coming out next season, and it makes it so where if you want to watch all the stuff that's coming out legally every season, you have to have like 8 different subscriptions. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think that's the number one issue with anime streaming is exclusivity. If
Yeah,
they didn't do exclusivity,
100%.
I feel like the competitive market would work itself out. Companies would be incentivized to improve their streaming platforms, their websites, their players, get better apps, get better variety of shows, because without exclusivity, what else do you have to sell? What you're actually doing, your streaming quality, what you should be focusing on, and no one is focusing on, which is stupid. It's like it's so unhealthy for the industry to have exclusivity, because now none of the companies give a shit about what they're doing, and customers don't have a choice. Like, we have to put up with all this bullshit because that's the only place we can get it.
Yeah, I mean, in a way, it's sort of a an extension of the idea of copyright. So copyright is a government granted monopoly to a creator of something, and a lot of content providers have kind of bastardized this idea into exclusivity as saying, well, we paid for it, therefore why shouldn't we be the only ones that have access to show it? So you brought up the idea of monopoly. It is a monopoly. Like, exclusivity definitely enables monopolies for these streaming services. It's not overall a good thing, I think. So a good idea that isn't necessarily anime related, but I'm going to use it anyway. Netflix is the primary entity responsible for the creation of a show called House of Cards.
Right.
It was pretty popular while it was on. Not even going to address the whole Kevin Spacey thing. But there was no reason why it should only have been accessible on Netflix. Yes, Netflix put almost all the risk and all the money forward to make it happen. But just think, if you had it on Netflix and Hulu and Amazon Prime Video and, I don't know, whatever else there was, you would have had more eyeballs on it and more. And at the beginning of every show, Netflix original. So it's like free advertisement on all these platforms for you.
I
But
agree.
if we're gonna look at the numbers of, but let's be honest, most like they marketed the shit out of it, and then a lot of people said, "Oh shit, I want to watch that. It's only on Netflix. Okay, I'll pay for it, and then I'll watch it on Netflix." So it kind of worked for them, honestly.
I think it goes both ways. It's advertisement both ways.
But
Whether
like,
you have
okay,
it as an exclusive on your platform and you say, hey, there's this great show, it's only here, come watch it. Or you can have it on all the platforms and say, hey, we made this, come support us.
I agree with Alex. I think that a lot of companies or a lot of content creators are blinded by the allegedly exorbitant fees up front of exclusivity. But in the long run, you're just decreasing the viewership of your product, and you're in the long run. I don't think it is a profitable idea, even though it may seem profitable at the moment. I don't think it's a sustainable practice for you to keep doing exclusivity.
Yeah, I agree. This is not a sustainable like economy. Honestly, what they're doing with the streaming services, how they splinter off, and you have like all of these different ones. And I guess we're gonna get to that bit later. But again, it's just gonna end up like cable, where you have just packages of streaming services. It's not gonna get better anytime soon.
Yeah, and of course, then you have we talked about it earlier, the Crunchyroll Funimation partnership that is ended now. But for a while there, I thought it was working out well for both companies. You had stuff that was on Crunchyroll, now on Funimation. You had Funimation coming in and helping to dub a lot of stuff that Crunchyroll had sitting in their backlog for a while that had never been dubbed. It was very profitable. Well, I don't know how profitable it was, but it engendered a lot of goodwill amongst the fans.
Yeah, it was very consumer friendly.
Especially fans of dubs who had maybe had reservations about watching it subbed on Crunchyroll. Well, now Funimation's come in and dubbed this for you.
Yeah.
And of course, that ended. And I think that's a really good example of something called the prisoner's dilemma. And actually, Sho was the one that brought this to my attention. I didn't even think about this when I was rummaging through this topic, but so Sho, do you want to explain briefly what the prisoner's dilemma actually is?
Sure. So I'm not going to explain exactly what it is. If you want to know the specifics, you can go look it up on Wikipedia. It's very complicated to explain it just verbally. They have like visuals to aid what's going on there. But basically what it is a problem in game theory where you as a player are trying to make a decision which you are trying to maximize your self-interest, and you're looking at all of the options in front of you at the moment, and you make a particular decision, and it seems like it benefits you the best by making this decision. But if you look at what all the other players are deciding in the game, you see that decision that you just made is actually not the optimal decision. And that's why it's a problem. And how it applies to anime streaming services is, I mean, you can put two and two together, but like the studios see the big money up front and they're like, obviously we want to be optimal, get the most money, we want to do this. But if you look at all the other studios that are going to make the same exact decision, if everybody makes that decision and if no one cooperates with each other, then what you're going to do is have a fragmented subscription model with all these different streaming services. You're going to alienate the customer base. And guess what? In the long run, no one's going to get any profits. And that decision that you thought was optimal by just looking at in a vacuum at what you had in front of you at that one moment was not optimal if you just took into account the entire industry. So, I mean, this is a very well-known dilemma, and I feel like the anime industry is falling into this problem, and it would be to me it's very obvious that exclusivity is not a good idea.
It's certainly not the answer to engender yourself to new fans.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's part of the thing. Like with the Prisoner's Dilemma, we had the Crunchyroll Funimation partnership. It was working for all parties involved, and then Sony comes in, throws a huge wrench into the machine, and says, "No, we're Sony. This is ours."
And again, we still haven't seen like the fruits of that deal. Like we have no idea what they're like working on, honestly.
I have absolutely no evidence to back me up on this, but I have this sneaking suspicion. I've had it for about a year now that Funimation's on the brink of bankruptcy.
Honey, Funimation has always been on the brink of bankruptcy.
No, I'm serious though. I'm serious. Like I think that's
serious.
part of the reason that Sony came in like it did, where it's like it was a move of desperation.
Honey, why do you think Crunchyroll came in? That's what I think.
Yeah, I don't know. I have this sneaking suspicion that Funimation might not be around much longer. I don't know. I have really no physical or like legal evidence at all to back me up on this. It's just a hunch that I have based on some of the business decisions that they've been making publicly.
And going back to the House of Cards thing, like, if one streaming services picks up, like, one really big IP, are customers really going to subscribe just for that one IP? I don't think so.
I mean, ever since Game of Thrones ended, you know how many people dropped HBO Go?
A lot.
Yeah, so,
I, as a customer, certainly won't. I'm not gonna. Why would I subscribe to a service just for one show? That's so.
No,
that's
yeah, I agree
so
with you.
stupid.
It's just we like it does happen. I agree with you, but it does happen. I don't know what to say.
I mean, he's right. I definitely agree with him, but to kind of play off of Show's point that he just made in when was it came out? I'm trying to think. Oh God. 2013. In 2013, when Attack on Titan came out, Crunchyroll had an enormous boost in subscriptions because that's the only place you could watch it.
Same with Fate Zero. That like Crunchyroll was the only place that you could watch it, and that was also like a big thing for a lot of people why they subscribed.
Yeah,
but I mean, that's not a.
So it does work, you know.
It's not
like,
a perfect example because you don't know if those subscriptions, like, if you don't know if they're subscribing just for that one content, maybe that's like the icing on the cake, and they're also interested in the other IPs because Crunchyroll has a shit ton of IPs that I'm sure the customers would also want. But like, I don't know. Well, it's hard for me to make this example because I don't know actually which streaming service is doing this, but I think it's HBO that streams The Walking Dead. I'm not entirely sure.
No, it's not. It's who does Hulu?
Whatever. Whoever streams The Walking
AMC
Dead.
is making it, so maybe.
Whoever.
Well, yeah, it's an AMC property.
Well, whoever streams The Walking Dead, I'm not going to subscribe to your service for just that one thing because I'm literally not interested in anything else you're selling. Whereas, like, Crunchyroll, I'm sure has other products that people who are watching Attack on Titan and Fate Zero are interested in. So I can understand that. But like for these other random shows, like Hulu grabbing One Punch Man 2, are you going to subscribe to Hulu for One Punch Man 2? No.
I wouldn't.
Stupidity. No one will do that because Hulu doesn't have enough other products to sustain a subscription.
I'm desperately trying to figure out who streams The Walking Dead right now.
It doesn't matter. Okay.
Exclusive to broadcast TV.
To be fair,
I mean, it is on broadcast television. It's on cable.
I think I think it actually is streamed for free on the AMC website in the US, which I am not in. I'm in Canada, so I'm just like, fuck you, AMC.
Wah wah. Oh God.
So Canada is a third world country.
Honey, we're just like the unofficial last state of the United States.
The 51st state, Canada.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's this whole thing of exclusivity, and we talk about it, but it's not good. And I think some of this is indicative of the fact that many of these, well, at least 4 of them, of these streaming services have gotten to the point where they are providing cash money to these production committees. And they feel like that entitles them to some form of exclusivity because they are one of the producers of the show. Like Crunchyroll, Funimation, and Netflix in particular are all on these production committees that get these exclusivity deals with them. And that's a really hard habit to break. It's actually my biggest fear with a lot of these American or Western-based companies getting into anime, and especially them starting to fund production of these anime, is that these anime studios are going to get addicted to this American money. And if anime stops becoming, or it stops its upward growth and starts to, retreat a little bit in popularity, it stops being a trend or a fad, then that money's going to dry up real quick.
But
and
it might turn in a different direction because, Trigger started a Patreon, for example. It's been, I think,
true.
a success, right?
That is true. There are so many different avenues for funding now that I think that anime studios in general, I think, are kind of stuck in the past on that production committee system.
Yeah.
That actually might be a topic for another podcast, though.
Yeah, probably.
So we've talked about it, and another side effect of this this increase in streaming services and exclusivity is this idea of a stagnation of innovation. So I want to ask any of you, this is an open question to anyone that can answer it. When was the last time of any of these streaming services that we've mentioned tonight that stream anime, when was the last time you saw an innovative product or idea coming out of the streaming service in particular?
When Crunchyroll, when Crunchyroll updated their shitty player after I don't know how long they've been using that old media player.
That wasn't even their own idea. They had to be
I'm not giving them
Yeah.
credit. It's like I'm saying it's ridiculous what happened there.
They had to be beat over the fucking head with a wrench to get it done.
Someone made an extension so you could access Crunchyroll with an HTML player or something like that, and it's been working fine. And then they decide, oh shit, yeah, maybe we should do that as well. I'm not saying that saying like good on them. No, it's ridiculous what happened with that.
But see, you mentioned Crunchyroll, and yeah, that's good that they finally after many years switched over to an HTML player about 5 or 6 years too late.
Yeah.
But they didn't change anything about their website, and go on it today. I swear to God that website has not changed its appearance in 10 years.
Well, honestly, HTML is a big update. I mean, why do you go to the website?
Yeah, but it's ridiculous they've been waiting so long to update.
So, I mean, that's a big update, even though it's not their idea. I mean, like, changing the format of their website isn't a big deal. It's more like the quality of less the appearance, more the functions. Add more functionality.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what I mean. I mean, yeah, you can make the UI look a lot prettier, but I'm talking about in terms of just functionality. Like, there's some parts of their menu system that just goes to broken pages. I'm like, seriously?
Really? I've never gotten a broken page.
I didn't get one.
It happens from time to time.
My biggest
Only in
problem
the US
is that their manga app never actually works on my mobile device. So I'm like, I want to fucking read my manga on my mobile device. I don't want to go to fucking computer. So annoying.
Well, and then there's constantly outages with Crunchyroll's mobile app.
I don't use the mobile. Actually, do I?
Okay,
the biggest issue with Crunchyroll right now is that they don't have enough shows because they're all exclusive to other shows. So I'm not even watching a lot of shows on or they're all exclusive to other streaming services. So I'm not even watching a lot of shows on Crunchyroll at the moment.
Yeah, I think I'm watching maybe 4 or 5. Let me bring up my queue and see.
I used to watch 10 a season on Crunchyroll. I'm watching 3 right now.
I'm watching 4. I'm watching 4 whole shows that are currently airing this season on Crunchyroll. I'm watching Demon Slayer, Fire Force, Danmaji Season 2, and Given. That's it.
That's a given.
Thank you for the shitty pun.
Everything's a give and take, Alex.
Jesus Christ.
You wake me up at 2 a.m. in the morning, that's what you get, boy.
Yeah. And of course, a lot of people will say, well, Crunchyroll has their awards show and their convention.
Great.
And I'm thinking, that does not even in any way affect their streaming service. By the way, they have a award show that they don't even bother to stream on their own service.
Well, Okay, you complain about the streaming about the award show, but I think the award show is a plus. Okay,
I mean,
I'd rather have the award show than no award show.
I don't
Just
know.
because it gives you B materials? I don't know about that.
Yeah, but it gives us something to talk about. That's for sure. Certainly gives us something to
God.
joke about. Now, see, I don't mind the idea of these things. I really don't. It's the execution of them I don't understand. Like, okay, if you're gonna
Yeah.
have both of these things, why not have them take place at the same time? Like, you have a convention, you already have a bunch of people showing up for an event. Why not have your award show at the same time?
Because
Alex,
because everyone complains about
We're
the
a
award
stupid
show.
company, Alex.
Everyone complains about the award show, so they're afraid to invest into it any further.
I don't know. I could sit here and lay out a bunch of things that would change both about the convention and the award show, but that's not what this is about. I just wanted to bring those up because some people might look at those and say those are innovations. They're certainly something that the company is doing, but it doesn't really affect the streaming service. I can't even think of the last time the Funimation's web player
Worked.
worked. It's like you get more than 5 people watching anime at a time on there. It's like, I can't do this right now. Bye.
It's weird because it's not for lack of asking. Like, the community has been voicing their like concerns and opinions. Like, people are asking for ages for Crunchyroll to like add a offline viewing function, but they
Yeah, like
haven't done
Netflix
that
did.
as well. Huh?
Netflix
Yeah,
did it,
Netflix
and
has
it works really well on both on mobile and on desktop. You can
Yeah.
do download later or download for later, and it's like that's a great idea, especially for someone like me who travels a lot, and especially for people who fly a lot. That's
Yep.
a fucking amazing idea.
It's ridiculous that Crunchyroll is like not. It's like not even engaging with that age. It's like, what the fuck? What?
Or here's an idea that may be even more simple to execute. There's a lot of weebs, myself included, who use MAL as a service. How about MAL integration while you're watching
Yeah.
Crunchyroll? That'd be
There's so
fucking
many
amazing.
like there's so many ways to improve your service, and it's like I and the community is like already has like a shit ton of ideas. Like, why not do that? You know?
And again, people are saying there's a lot of people out there, a lot of people who work for Crunchyroll or any of these streaming services for that matter, saying, "Oh, we don't have the resources, we don't have the
Bullshit.
people that can do it." Bullshit! There's a fucking community out here who have varied skills who would love to help you if you just give them the fucking opportunity. I don't know. I will say that no one really talks about it, but I think of all the streaming services that do anime currently, the two that have the best web player are Amazon Prime Video and High Dive.
Never used them. Wouldn't know.
Same. I don't know about that.
Well, the Amazon Prime Video player has like $1 billion company behind it, so it better be good.
I mean, Netflix is a way bigger company than Crunchyroll, and wait, I like the HTML Crunchyroll player better than the Netflix player. I think the
Really?
Netflix UI is such shit.
I think it used to be, but I think what it's become is
I
actually
fucking
pretty
hate it.
good.
There's
Well,
like
mobile's
pop-ups
pretty good,
everywhere, autoplay videos at every corner of the screen. Like, calm the fuck down.
On mobile, it's pretty good, the UI.
Yeah, the mobile UI for Netflix is amazing. The
Yeah.
desktop one, I can see why people would have issues with it. I personally don't, but I can certainly see why people have issues with it. I don't know. It's just I can't think of anything innovative that many of these streaming services. Oh, and before anyone out there says that, well, you can skip intros and outros with Netflix. As
Well
anime
done.
fans, we don't want to do that.
That's well, for my non-anime watches on Netflix, that is quite helpful.
But anime fans don't want that. We typically, most anime fans want to watch the OPs and EDs, especially if they're bangers.
I mean, but like, okay, there's a significant amount of people who skip the OPs and EDs, so why not just add that functionality in Crunchyroll? Like, you don't have to skip it; you just have the functionality there too.
yeah, I could. If they add that as a choice, then yeah, I would say.
I mean, it is
I'd be
a
okay with that.
choice on Netflix too, you know.
True, it is. It is. I'm just saying that the way Crunchyroll does stuff, I would not be surprised. Is you hit it once, it assumes you want to do it all the time.
Yeah, Crunchyroll has big problems.
So, is there any other innovation that any of you can think of that any of these players have put forth? My thoughts exactly. I can't. Besides them touting exclusivity as an innovation, and it's not. It's really not. So I guess the best way to end this is to ask a question that Natai came up with for this and say, are these streaming services really going the way of cable television? And is that a bad thing?
Yes and yes. Again.
Good, I agree with you. You're doing great with the commentary tonight.
Woo! Listen, I mean, like, people have been bitching about cable TV especially in the US for a long time, and for good reason. That whole thing with the packages and whatnot, it's ridiculous. And then like streaming services started coming along. It's been like, oh, that's a great innovation. It's like a good market. Like, well done. We're going in a different direction than cable. And it's like, fuck yeah. And lo and behold, we're going in the same direction as cable TV. Disney just announced that bundle they're making, which has ESPN, Hulu, and Disney Plus. And hey, that's just like packages you get with cable. So what the fuck's the difference? Well, not a whole lot in the coming years. Probably not a whole lot. And it's not sustainable. And I don't know what's going to take to like convince these companies to like take a different approach with streaming, especially with anime. But I'm not optimistic about it at all.
So I have a question, Natai.
Okay.
You've mentioned Disney and its ownership of Hulu and ESPN. What's to stop Disney from coming in and buying Crunchyroll?
Nothing stops them.
Exactly. So what
You
my
can't
point
stop the
in
mouse.
saying all of this, is just wait long enough and Disney will buy it.
Disney is going to own all of us in a few decades.
Do you know, this is a scary thought, but do you know that of all of the broadcast entertainment on Earth, Disney is responsible either in full or in part for nearly 48% of it?
Yeah, and that's scary as fuck.
So Disney's eventually just going to buy all the anime studios.
Excuse me.
Although, let me be honest, that would be a reversal of the problem we're having. If Disney just bought all these streaming services, we'd only have one to go to.
Whoa.
I made fun of Verve being like this basket of different streaming services, but maybe that's the way to go. Where if you could basket like Hulu, Netflix, Funimation, Crunchyroll all into one, and then pay like $10, $15 a month for it, I'd probably do that.
Honestly, No, keep going.
I'm stoked on Ambition and Verve. Go ahead.
Stop with the shitty puns, Jesus H Christ.
I had to do it.
I mean, if you could get something like, if you could get Hulu, Netflix, Funimation, and Crunchyroll for $15 a month, would you guys be willing to pay that much for those four services?
No, because there's...
No.
I ain't watching Funimation and Hulu. What kind of bullshit is that? Put all my shit on one site.
Honestly,
That's what I'm
when I
saying.
imagine,
If they had a bundled site like Verve where you could watch all of it at the same time and the same service.
Oh, I didn't know they had it one website.
Yeah, that's what Verve is. It bundles all these different libraries onto a single like player.
But only like parts of their libraries, not all of them.
No, yeah, it's true. It's not the entire library, but it is a significant portion.
I don't know about that.
Sure, yeah, I would do that.
Yeah, I think that would be like even if it was like $20 a month, it's still I think it's
But
a
the
reasonable
thing
price
is
for the
that,
entire
like-
library of four services.
Like, with the anime landscape of streaming services, like, Crunchyroll has 80% of the IPs, Netflix has 15%, and everyone else has, like, 1 to 2%. So, like, what... Okay, other than Funimation, but they only have dubs. But, like, it's not an equal distribution of stuff.
Yeah,
So, like,
we're-
is it
like,
even worth... Like, is it even
Yeah.
worth bundling it?
And again, we're coming back to just bundling stuff because we want to watch the shows. We're going away from discussion of just make your streaming service like good
Better.
instead of locking some shows behind like paywalls,
yeah.
So I don't think it's the way to go.
Also, I did actually just think of an innovation that Funimation is responsible for in the last few years. The idea of simuldubs, where you have like the dub within
That's
24
true,
hours
actually,
of it
yeah.
airing in Japan in Japanese. So I don't know if that's actually a good or a bad thing.
think it's
I've
good.
stopped watching a whole lot of dubs. I do still watch them occasionally, but I don't watch them anywhere near as much as I used to. So I don't know if having those dubs come out so quickly affects the quality of them as much.
I didn't even like the Funimation cast, so
With the same person and the same person gets cast in every main character role.
like honestly, I'm sure I've complained about that before, but anime does the same thing. I mean, well, like in Japan they do the same thing. So, but like, I just don't like their talent.
Don't lie, you just want Yukikachi to learn English so he can dub it himself.
Please.
No, honestly, I want Nicki Minaj to dub everything.
Oh my god,
damn it.
no. On that note, I am so sorry to our listeners that had to hear that appalling opinion.
You a stupid hoe.
The
You
beach,
stupid
beach,
hoe.
let's go get away.
Yeah, I don't know. Anime streaming services are in an interesting place right now. I fear that they're going down the wrong path. I don't really see a great path forward for what they're trying to do. I see this almost the exact same thing happening with other streaming services where it's fragmenting so much that people are like, enough, and I'm kind of fearful for it. God help us if any of these anime studios start having their own streaming services as well. Then
But don't you
we're
think
really
that's
fucked.
actually a better idea to like cut the middleman and just okay, I want to watch trigger shows, so I'm just gonna go and pay directly to them. Don't you think that's like
Don't
You
give
would
them
do
any
that,
ideas.
Nitai? You would have like
No,
15 different
I'm not saying-
services.
I'm not saying that, but let's I'm like let's think about it for a second, okay? Let's say I like fuck whatever. Okay, we'll keep trigger. Let's say I really like trigger shows, okay? And I want to support them directly and watch pretty much only their shows. So, like they have their Patreon, for example. Let's say we cut all, like everything else and just pay. You pay directly for the studio you want to watch their shit, and there you go.
Honey,
I'm not saying that it should be like this, but like you
The
know.
best, let me say, the best way you could help Studio Trigger is by cloning Hiroyuki and Maishi.
Oh my god. I ain't loyal to any studio enough to pay.
I'm not saying
for
that I like
just their
loyalty.
shows.
I'm not saying I'm again like imagine for a sec, all right?
Imagine a world.
I don't understand what you're trying to say. I think that's a stupid idea.
I kind of have to say, if every studio had their own streaming service, unless it were free and ad supported,
Let's
I
be
wouldn't
honest.
be
There
watching
shouldn't
it.
be as many anime studios as there are right now. That's also an issue.
Well,
but
that maybe
whatever.
there certainly shouldn't be that many anime coming out as there are either.
What? Don't you want to watch the what's it called? This generic new light novel show? Oh, I don't know.
My MILF is my partner in the Isekai
Yeah,
world.
exactly. Double attack,
Oh,
mom,
my-
isekai.
Yeah, I
Isekai,
definitely want to
woo.
watch that. I want to watch that in its beautiful 5 score on Mal. Yeah, I really want to watch it.
Fucking Japan.
God. I think that's a great place to end this, though. Get your shit together, streaming services. God damn it. So thank you all out there for dropping in to listen to us. We hope you enjoyed it because we always enjoy bringing this stuff to you. If you want to check out previous episodes of the podcast, you can find us on YouTube, SoundCloud, iTunes, and Spotify. If you want to keep up with what we're doing, you can join us on Discord, Facebook, Twitter, and our website. Shoot us an email if you have any questions or if you have ideas for topics you'd like for us to talk about in the future. Links to all these things will be down below in the description. As always, I have been your host, Alex, and I will see you next time. Say goodnight, everybody.
Good morning, everybody.
Good evening.
Oh, you're not going to say anything pun-like? After all the shitty puns we had tonight, seriously?
I have no Vikings to sexualize.
Nice.
You should watch the Vinland Saga, or watch it on YouTube. Watch our Vinland Saga spoiler casts, and then you can see how many Vikings I've sexualized.
Spoiler alert, it's all of them.
Especially the boys.
There are only male Vikings. Nitai.
Come on.